Golden State Warriors just added exactly what the NBA feared. As you all know, the Warriors have been looking for some great off-season signings, and they are looking to sign none other than Blake Griffin to the Warriors roster. In today's video, we're going to be going through why Blake Griffin is a perfect fit for the Golden State Warriors and how he can help them win another NBA championship. So make sure to like this video, and guys, 92% of you are still not subscribed to the channel, so it'd mean the world if you could subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. The first is that Blake Griffin will add more scoring power to the Golden State Warriors. Now, as you all know, Blake Griffin most recently played for the Boston Celtics, but was still only averaging around 9 to 10 minutes per game. The last time he was averaging a good amount of minutes of around 15 minutes plus was with the Brooklyn Nets, where he was able to average 10 points while also shooting 38% from the three and had a 58% effective field goal percentage. Blake Griffin, if given the opportunity, can score at will and can be a great scorer. Now, we probably won't expect him to score 20-25 points per game, but if he can give a team such as the Golden State Warriors 10 points off the bench, maybe even 15, that is honestly a great sign and a great power forward to have in the roster. As you all know, JaMychal Green has actually left the Warriors team, so it does seem that power forward spot is open as Dario Saric has taken that center position, and I think Blake Griffin can fill that very well. Well, JaMychal Green's job when he was with the team was to definitely be a scorer off the bench, and having someone like Blake Griffin's capability, especially now where he's not only a great athletic player, but he's got that three-ball shot if needed for that spot up three, and it does match with what the Warriors are trying to do. So when it comes to Warriors, definitely what they need is a lot more scoring off the bench, as last season, and as we especially look at the playoff series against the Los Angeles Lakers, it was a lot of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and just focusing on them to do most of the scoring. Now this season, it seems that the Warriors are taking a new approach where they're trying to get as many scorers as possible in that roster so they become more versatile and don't need to rely so heavily on Steph Curry every single play. So I think this honestly matches up very well due to the fact that with the new bench of Chris Paul, other players such as Dario Saric, Blake Griffin can fit into that bill very well. Well, I think Blake Griffin does well, especially on the scoring side of things, is definitely his finishing around the ring. He's got great a soft finish around the ring when it comes to floaters, little hook shots, and things of that nature. So I think he can definitely get the job done once again, and the fact that he has been able to add a three-point shot to his game, and not just an average three-point shot, guys, 38% from the three-point line, okay? So that would actually put him in the top tier of some of the Warriors players when it comes to the current roster, and that may be one of the reasons why Golden State is looking to get him in the team as soon as possible. The second is that Blake Griffin will team up with Chris Paul once again. Now, I think this is something that is going to be absolutely exciting to see, but as you all know, Chris Paul and Blake Griffin were part of one of the most exciting teams back in the day, which was Lob City, and we saw some of the greatest pick and roll action from Blake Griffin and also Chris Paul. And I think having them both in the team once again would honestly be fantastic and very beneficial for this team. We already know, and we have talked about this multiple times, on how Chris Paul is really going to help this team grow, but on top of everything on top of that, I think adding players that Chris Paul have already worked with and players that he already feels comfortable playing with, such as Dario Saric, such as Blake Griffin now, I do believe will only make him really prosper and really do very well for this team. If we look at the Golden State Warriors last season, they didn't do such a great job when it came to actually efficiency on scoring. They actually ranked 15th when it came to field goal percentage, and one of the reasons why I do believe that, and it does show in the stats as well, is due to the fact that they heavily relied on three-point shooting. While although they are a great three-point shooting team, it did diminish a bit of their effective field goal percentage. I think what Chris Paul definitely will bring to this team is definitely a lot more inside scoring, and having someone like Blake Griffin who he can run pick and roll plays off, I think would honestly not only just help scoring in general for the Warriors, but also the efficiency that they score at as well. I definitely see them being a top 5 field goal percentage team next season, and that is where they need to be, as when they actually won the championship against the Boston Celtics, they were ranking in the top 5 of those categories. Shooting is very important and something Warriors definitely live by, but efficiency on how they get there is definitely even more important. So I do believe with what they got going on, Blake Griffin will work very well with the roster that they currently have, teaming up with other players, especially if we look at just the second unit of Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Dario Saric. There are a lot of great players that can definitely complement what Blake Griffin can do, and Blake Griffin can also do that vice versa by complementing them. The third is that Blake Griffin can provide a lot of veteran experience to the younger players. Now, as you all know, when it comes to the Golden State Warriors, they do have a couple of young players that could have the potential to become great stars one day, and I do believe that they need more veteran experience, especially in different facets. If we look at some of the young players that are definitely mentioned, the one that really does stand out is definitely Jonathan Kuminga in this stage. As you all know, Kuminga does get quite a few minutes for the Golden State Warriors, where last season he was averaging 20 minutes. He averaged 9.9 points, 3.4 rebounds, and 1.9 assists. However, I do believe when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga, what he definitely needs to have is more veteran experience that he can learn off, and I think Blake Griffin can definitely fit that bill. Yes, you have other players like Draymond Green who are in the similar position, but I think Draymond can teach him a lot defensively rather than on offense, and I think what Blake Griffin can add to Jonathan Kuminga's game is definitely more offensive facets. I think what is important is to have veterans that have different strengths and also that fit the position of the younger guys as well. As you all know, Kuminga does run that power forward position and can also play small forward, and I think Blake Griffin can definitely teach him a lot, especially when it comes to coming off the bench, being in that power forward position, and also being a great scorer for the league. Like I mentioned before, yes, Draymond does fit the bill, but he teaches Jonathan Kuminga more of a defensive unit, and Jonathan has over the last year become a great defensive warrior, but now I do believe Kuminga can definitely improve his offense even more. I think Blake Griffin can definitely provide that. But it doesn't just stop there, because when it comes to Blake Griffin, there are also a lot of other younger guys in the Warriors team that can definitely use his guidance. Trayce Jackson-Davis is definitely a perfect example of that. He's 6'9", forward position. We also have other players that are younger, may not be in the same position, but can teach a lot from him. Lester Quinones. You also have other players such as Moses Moody. So there are still a lot of young guys in this team that definitely need guidance. And now that you have Chris Paul, you add Dario Saric to the mix, and now even add Blake Griffin, you got a lot of experience on your hands, and now you have a more experienced second unit, especially when it comes to playoff time, where veteran experience is definitely going to be needed. The fourth is that Blake Griffin is a high value player, and the Warriors can get him for a very cheap price. Now, as you all know, Blake Griffin is a free agent. However, it does seem that a lot of the teams that are offering him are only offering a kind of a minimum contract, and because of that, the Warriors could get a great player for a very cheap price. And the reason why I think this is super important is that Golden State Warriors can still sign more players on top of that, and on top of that, they can also free up cap space, especially for next offseason, as they plan to do. As you all know, when it comes to Klay Thompson's contract, also Chris Paul's contract, they are actually going to be on their last season heading into this next season, and because of that, it does free up cap space for the Warriors to make some big moves if they do want to get a superstar next season. And on top of that, getting someone like Blake Griffin now for a cheap price, it could still keep enough cap space for them to get a superstar next year. So it is a bit of a future play in this sense as well, but when it comes to getting someone for a minimum for the best value, I think Blake Griffin is definitely one of them. Blake Griffin is still a well-known name in the NBA, and I think a lot of teams would take him for the right price, which is why there are a couple of other teams that have been interested as well in Blake Griffin. However, it does seem that Warriors are the best fit, and it seems like it's more leaning towards that. So because of those reasons, I think if it doesn't work out for the long haul, I do believe they can still get a lot of trade value from Blake Griffin, and on top of that, they still have enough cap space this offseason to maybe sign one other player if they decide to get another X-Factor player as well. So when it comes to the financial side of things, if we look at the front office and what they are trying to do, this does make probably the most strategic sense out of any other free agency available, especially when it comes to the big man players. When it comes to the big men, they're all very, very high value players, and because of that, it comes with a very high price tag. Christian Wood was another player that was definitely mentioned, but the only big problem with Christian Wood is that he is asking for double-digit million type of deal, and Warriors don't really want to pay that, especially pay an excess in that luxury tax. The fifth is that Blake Griffin will add more strength and size to the Golden State Warriors. Now, as you all know, the Golden State Warriors last season did actually face off against the Los Angeles Lakers in the playoffs, and they were unfortunately knocked out. One of the main reasons why they actually were knocked out was not because Steph Curry played bad or anything like that, but I do believe they didn't have enough size in order to get the job done and defend players such as Anthony Davis. Now, as you all know, Anthony Davis stands at around 6'11", 7 feet pretty much, and when it comes to Anthony Davis, it was very hard to stop him due to the fact that the Warriors did run quite a small ball lineup, and Kevon Looney at the time was the only tallest player, and if he was subbed out, then you had Draymond Green, who did a solid job, however is still only 6'6". I don't know about you guys, but height does matter, especially in the NBA at times, and Anthony Davis was able to really cook Warriors, especially during that series. And as sad as that is to see, I do believe adding someone like Blake Griffin, who does stand at 6'9", 250 pounds, and is 34 years old, can definitely really help help this team, especially on the defensive side of things. If Blake Griffin does sign with the Golden State Warriors, it would actually make him the second tallest player in the team. You also have other players, especially now with Dario Saric now, Kevon Looney's also 6'9", and now you add Blake Griffin, so now you have 3 players around that 6'9", 7-foot range. And I think that's definitely something that this team definitely needs. When it comes to what they are trying to do, they definitely needed more size, especially when it came to the defensive side of things, especially on the rebounding end, and I think Blake Griffin will definitely add that. When it comes to the most recent season with Blake Griffin playing a good amount of minutes, around 5+ minutes per game, he was able to average 5 rebounds a game, which was great to see. And I do believe on top of that, we look at his blocking at 0.5, which is great, and steals of 0.7. So he definitely has a great defensive ability and a defensive knack to what he is able to do, and I think that is going to play huge dividends for what the Warriors are trying to do as well. When it came to the Warriors last season, they actually ranked 22nd in points allowed, which puts them in the bottom 10 when it came to defending points, and because of that, something definitely needs to change as defense wins championships.